Ta-da! Hey everybody, my name is Adam and this is part 3 in my top 10 leadership essentials for youth pastors and church leaders. And today we're talking about the foundation of leadership. A couple years back, there was a whole group of youth pastors in our city who were working together to try to bring Jesus to the teenagers of the Downriver area south of Detroit. And we had a great partnership going, and we partnered with a bunch of schools. And what we were trying to do is bring in a bunch of assemblies to schools all around our city, and then through those assemblies be able to connect with students and to hopefully reach students for the gospel. And so we worked on this honestly for years to build relationships between youth pastors, between churches, between us, churches, and the schools. And eventually we got some traction going and we got some school assemblies going. And then there was a year that happened where we invited in this guest speaker. We did school assemblies in a couple different schools and they went over incredibly well. So much so that the principals and the schools were like, can you bring this dude back next year? And so the momentum grew and we continued working hard. So the next year we booked this guy out like a year in advance, like you got to come and do this. And we had an entire week of school assemblies planned. Like every day we're hitting like 3 or 4 different schools, doing multiple assemblies. It was going to be huge. It was going to be epic. And we were ready for it after years of working. Like, yeah, this is finally happening. And then we're having a youth pastor meeting 1 week before the big event. And the dude who was coming as our guest speaker, and this guy is kind of famous. If I named him, some of you might know his name. But 1 week before, he cancels on us. He says, sorry, I'm not coming. And we're like, what? What do you mean you're not coming? You gave us your word and said you'd be here a year ago. We're paying you thousands of dollars to come and do this. You've got to come and do this. And long story short is he didn't come. His organization sent another person to come, and the other person was good, but it wasn't the same dude. This wasn't the dude that the schools were expecting, that the schools allowed us to come in because of this guy's name and his reputation. And so it caused us as churches across our city to lose trust with the schools. We lost traction. We lost a larger amount of influence and ability for the schools to trust us in that bridge that we were building between the schools and the churches. And it was a huge bummer, and we were all bummed, and we're like, ah. Now, what I learned later is there was a key ingredient that was missing in that scenario that I later learned and now know is literally the foundation of leadership. And it was missing in that event right there. And because it was missing, I no longer trust this dude. If he wanted to come back again, I probably wouldn't book him because I don't know if he's going to cancel on me. And in fact, I probably wouldn't want to follow his lead. If he were leading something, I'd have a difficult time following his lead because of this one thing that happened. And so what I want to do today is talk to you about that thing that's the foundation of leadership. But before I tell you what it is, I want to tell you how I came to this conclusion that it is the foundation of leadership. See, for the past 3 decades, for 30 plus years, there's been a group of researchers that have been researching leadership and studying and doing surveys literally all over the planet for 30 years. So year after year after year, in this part of the world, this part of the world, this part of the world, that part of the world, all over the world, they've studied this and researched this, and they came up with 20 characteristics that people said, these are things that are true of people who I would willingly follow. And so they narrow this 20 down, and this all can be found in this book called The Leadership Challenge. Check it out if you want all the details on this. But they found these 20 traits. Well, but then they took the top 4 out of 20. There was 4 that kind of rose to the top amongst all the different places and locations and generations. These 4 things rose to the top. So when you combine these 4, you get the one that's the foundation. So top 4, number 1 was honest. The number 1 trait that people are looking for in a leader that they willingly will follow is honesty. Is that person honest? Do they tell the truth? Can I trust them? Far and above, in every study, in every corner of the planet, people want their leaders to be honest. They need to know that they can trust their leaders, that their leaders are trustworthy, whether they're going to follow them into a classroom, onto a battlefield, into a boardroom, in a church, no matter what the situation and what the scenario, people everywhere, above all else, they're saying we need our leaders to be honest. So that's the first for. The second one is forward looking. Like if this person is leading us, they need to know where they're leading us to. They need to be looking into the future and painting a picture for the people following them of here's the future that we're going for. They need to be looking ahead, planning ahead, forward looking was the second trait. The third trait is inspiring. They need the person who's leading them to actually be passionate about the thing that they're leading them towards. They need to be enthusiastic and encouraging about this thing, whatever it is, their cause, their dream, their mission. They need to be inspiring the people that are following them, like, come on, this is worth giving our lives to. So third one was inspiring. And the fourth word is competent. People need their leaders to actually know what they're doing, to actually be able to prove that they can actually get things done. They want their leaders to be competent. Now, if you take all four of these things, what they did is they took all four of these things and they're like, how can we say what all these things mean in one word? And they said, this is the one word that they determined was the foundation of leadership. Are you guys ready for it? I know you've been waiting for like 5 minutes for it. Here it is. The foundation of leadership is credibility. Credibility is the foundation of leadership. More than anything else, people want to follow leaders who are credible. If I'm going to follow you, I need to believe that your word can be trusted. I need to know that you're enthusiastic and passionate about the thing that you're leading me towards, and I need to believe that you have the knowledge and the skill to be able to lead me there. You may have heard the story of the boy who cried wolf. It's kind of a famous kid's story. If you don't know it, it goes kind of like this. There was this kid who was out in the fields watching sheep one day, and there's this village, and they had all these sheep, and he was watching for the wolves. Well, one day he thought, for whatever reason, he thought it'd be funny to say that there was a wolf. So he runs into the town, wolf, wolf, and all the villagers come running. Oh, there's a wolf. Oh, they've got their sticks, and they got their weapons to fend off the wolf. And there was no wolf. And the kid is like, he thought it was hilarious, so he was cracking up like, and so everybody goes back like, what the heck? Well, he thought it was so funny that next day, a couple days later, he does it again. This time he's like, wolf, this is a huge wolf, help! And they all come running like, to try to save their sheep and save everything from the wolf, and there's no wolf. And the kid is cracking up. He's like, tricked you again. Well then, a couple days go by, and an actual wolf comes, and he's freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, there's an actual wolf. Ah! He runs into the town. Guys, I'm serious this time. Wolf, there's a wolf. The villagers at this point would not listen. They're like, yeah, right. Nice try. Haha, you're not fooling us this time. In the meantime, all of his sheep are literally getting killed and eaten by this wolf. It's attacking his sheep and ravaging his flock of sheep. The boy who cried wolf, because he wasn't honest, because he didn't have credibility, the people didn't come. See, when he lied and when he wasn't honest, he lost credibility with the people, and then he couldn't influence them to do anything. They literally sat by while their sheep got eaten by this wolf. This is a famous, world famous story because it teaches this truth. It's like ingrained in us as humans. We know that if somebody doesn't have credibility, we definitely are not going to follow their lead anywhere. This is such a basic thing, yet it's critical if we're going to be the kind of leaders that people actually want to follow. Here's the reality. If you don't believe the messenger, then you won't believe their message. The way that people say they know if somebody has credibility, there's a couple different phrases they use. They say things like they walk their talk, or they practice what they preach. Their actions are consistent with their words. They put their money where their mouth is. They follow through on their promises. Or this one, this is the most frequent response of, this is how I know if you are credible. They do what they say they'll do. They do what they say they will do. So if credibility is the foundation of leadership, how do I establish credibility and build credibility? It's actually pretty simple. Here it is. Ready? You do what you say you'll do. If you want to establish credibility, start doing what you say you do, and then the next day do what you say you do, and then the next day do what you say you're going to do, and then keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, and eventually you'll establish credibility. See, when that guest speaker came and bailed on us on that week of school assemblies, what happened is, what went wrong is he lost all credibility with me, with all the other youth pastors who were putting on these assemblies, with those churches, with those schools. It was a pretty big deal because he made a commitment to be there and then he didn't follow through with that commitment. He didn't do what he said he was going to do. There's this dude named James. James was actually the brother of Jesus, who I would propose is literally one of the greatest leaders in the history of the world, okay? And so James has an up-close front row seat to leadership in action, perfect leadership in action. And here's what James says: let your yes be yes and your no be no. That means if you say yes, you're going to do something, then do it. If you say no, you're not going to do something, then don't do it. Do what you say you'll do. I used to struggle with this a lot and still kind of do sometimes in life, but I used to always, I never wanted to say no to people because I was worried I'd let them down. Like whenever people would invite, hey, are you coming to this? Are you coming to this? Are you doing this? Sometimes I would literally say, yeah, I think so. And when in the back of my mind, I was actually thinking, no, I'm not going to go. I'll just tell them the day of, I'm not going to be able to make it. But no, don't. That is how you lose credibility. I just needed to man up and say, no, I'm not coming. Or yes, I am coming, and make a decision and then stick to that decision. If you're going to gain credibility, you've got to say yes or say no and then do whatever you can to follow through on that yes or to follow through on that no. Keep doing that and you'll gain credibility and you'll be able to establish a solid foundation for leadership. So it's not just the book of James in the Bible that gives us this principle. Psalm 15:4 tells us that God is looking for people who keep their promises even when it hurts. You guys, sometimes it hurts. It's a sacrifice. It's hard to keep our promises. We've promised something. We've said we're going to do something. We got to do it even when it's not convenient, even when it's not easy. This is called being a man or woman of your word. Some people would call this character. Some people would call this character or integrity. This is the foundation of leadership. It's all over the Word of God. It's in studies through culture across the world. I think it's fascinating that after years and years of research and study, they came to this conclusion that credibility is the foundation of leadership. And I think one of the reasons for that is because we as humans are made in the image of God. And if you think about God, God is 100% credible. God always does what he says he will do. God is not just a promise maker, but God is a promise keeper, and he is always faithful to his promises, and that's why we can trust God. And I think that's why we resonate so much with leaders who have credibility, because what we're seeing in that leader, we're seeing the image of God in them, and that's something that makes us want to follow that, because it's in us to want to follow God. And when we see God's image in a person, then we want to follow that. Okay. I want to give you one more example of credibility. I think you're getting it now, but let me just kind of wrap up with this. The man himself, Jesus, was a man of credibility like no other. If you've read the Gospels, you see that Jesus was going telling people that he was literally telling people that he was going to die, and then 3 days later that he was going to rise from the dead. And people are like, what the heck is wrong with you, Jesus? You are crazy. This is crazy talk. What are you talking about? They thought he was bananas. They thought it was weird. They were just confused by what he was even saying. Well, then he went and did it. He died. And they're like, oh my gosh, he said he was going to die. That's what he was talking about. And then 3 days later, he rose from the dead. Woo! But not only did that rescue us from our sins and change the course of human history, but that proved that Jesus was credible. He followed through. He did what he said he was going to do on something that was impossible to do. Jesus is the ultimate example of credibility. And if we want to be like Jesus, we need to be people of credibility who do what we say we will do. Because I'm still rather new here at Ada Bible Church, I'm still in this process of establishing credibility with a lot of different people in my circles and people around me. And so I don't have the level of credibility that I wish I had, but I just know that that's taking time, and I'm trying hard to do what I'm saying that I'm going to do and prove myself trustworthy and prove myself competent and all these different things so that I can be seen as a credible leader who people actually want to follow. But it takes time. You don't build this overnight. It takes time to build credibility. So be patient. If you're young and you're new in leadership, just keep doing what you say you will do, and it will come eventually. Here's why this really matters, because what you do as a youth pastor or as a church leader, as a person who's following Jesus, what you do matters. And so if you don't have credibility, you're not going to have the influence that you could have to leverage for the glory of God and for the kingdom of God. And so it's so critical that we establish credibility for the sake of the gospel and for the sake of the next generation and for the sake of Jesus' name and Jesus' glory. And because what we're doing, it matters. And the more influence we have, the more ability we have to lead people towards Jesus. And so I want to wrap this up by going back to those 4 words. Which of these 4 words maybe you need to work on in your life so that you can strengthen the credibility that you have going on? Number 1, honest. Are you truthful? Do you have character? Are you trustworthy? Number 2, forward-looking. Are you looking towards the future? Are you looking ahead? And are you pointing people towards what's ahead? Inspiring. Are you energetic and passionate and encouraging and uplifting people towards a positive future? And competent. Are you capable? Are you getting the job done? Are you seen as professional? Do people trust that you are able to do the job that you've been entrusted to do? Which of those 4 traits do you need to work on in order to grow in your credibility? Because listen to me, guys. Credibility is the foundation of leadership. So let me end this thing with do what you say you'll do.